Welcome to today's webinar. I thought we were supposed to be paperless by now. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. You can see last week's replay on Denovo's YouTube channel, and we would be more than happy to send it over to you. Also, part 3 will be at this time again next week, so join us again. Today's presenters are Mike Hoskin from Denovo. Mike has been in the JDE and Oracle ERP space for the past 20 years in both consulting and sales. Prior to that, he had several manufacturing and engineering roles for companies such as Tandy and GE. We also have Peter Lopes with us. Peter is the Eastern Region Account Executive for Canon based in Massachusetts. He joined the Canon team 9 years ago and has a background in Oracle technology and ERP systems. Mike and Peter, let's start our conversation.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Denovo and Canon are partnering together to help your growing organizations transform your AP departments into a lean business unit. AP processes are transforming from paper-based to digital throughout all industries, throughout all geographies. And they're doing it with the help of automation, imaging, and related technologies that are highly integrated with your ERP system, such as JD Edwards E1 and others. With numerous solutions and approaches to automating AP, how you unlock the most value for your organizations and your users is the key critical question. In today's discussion between me and Pete, we will discuss the reality that organizations are, for the most part, very far from being paperless, and the challenges that paperless creates. Pete, you got to tell me, man, are we or are we not paperless? I thought we were supposed to be paperless by now.
Well, Mike, as everybody wants to know, we're not paperless today. A couple of years ago, there was people were looking towards getting paperless in their organizations. However, the COVID kind of turned things upside down because businesses lost business, employees were remote, and so that affected projects going forward. However, we did see an uptick in customers looking to automate their AP automation during the course of the pandemic, and that was good. But now we're going to see more of that, I'm sure, because we're not going back to normal, but we are going back to near normal. So we're looking forward to this paperless environment now proceeding forward. In part of that, what we did is we partnered with an organization that's very well respected in the finance industry. That's the Institute for Finance and Management, and that's IOFM. And based upon a couple of surveys that they conducted during the course of the pandemic, we found some very interesting results. So maybe we want to look through some of these.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, you got the complication that your customers are looking to get paperless, but also last year we had COVID. So, talk about some of the challenges as the executives of our customers are looking towards 2021 and beyond. What are some of the things you guys have seen and found?
Yeah, well, immediately what we saw is the fact that managers in AP and finance were very concerned about the fact that they don't have direct control over their AP process because employees are now remote. They're working at home office, vacation homes, whatever the case may be. And as a result of that, there's not a hands-on review of the process as it goes forward. Even if it's manual in the office, there's some control. But when it's manual outside the office, spread across multiple employees, then it becomes a real concern. And so there was a lot of concern about that during the course of it, and it's a major challenge. And how do you pull this together and keep control over what's going on in your AP process?
You talk about, like, the top issues are supplier inquiries. What about invoices, tracking invoices and processing and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, exactly. Now employees left the office, they're home. What happens to the paper invoices that are coming in? What happened is an employee or multiple employees were required to go into the office, get those paper invoices, scan them into a folder, and then email them to whoever needs to review them. So what happened? When you have invoices all over the place in multiple email boxes, there's no way to track those invoices. So they tried to get people to create a spreadsheet and make sure that they enter in all of the invoices that came in that fashion. But that still left gaps. And as we'll see in a minute, it became problematical as well.
You've got a lot of companies, Pete, over the last 10, 20 years that have centralized AP into a shared services type environment. Now with the remote environment we find ourselves in, how do they handle things like forecasting? You know, the controller has to forecast cash. What happens? What do they do?
It's not very easy, Mike. Again, when you have those invoices spread around, how do you not manage the fact that you have to be able to identify what your cash requirements are for that specific month? Management is looking to have that information. How do you do that? How do you get that information when it's in multiple individuals' email boxes? So what's happening is, as I mentioned before, there's more use of spreadsheets, but you know what? Those don't do the trick either, because they don't identify duplicate invoices. They don't identify rogue invoices. Things change during the course of the month, as we all know. And so cash forecasting became a real problem for many organizations.
Something else hit me too, with remote workers and with all this paper floating around that we still have. What do you guys see in the area of fraud? Is it increased, decreased? What's going on?
Yeah, as I just mentioned, is duplicate invoices, rogue invoices. Fraud has become a real problem when it's remote. Again, nobody is able to manage that process. Even if it's manual and it's internal, you can manage that process to some degree. But however, when it's remote and spread across multiple individuals, finding those specific types of invoices is an issue.
We always think of fraud maybe in terms of the IT department or an IT issue. Where do you see where do you see the targets of fraud, or where's the biggest risk in organizations today? Holy cow!
Yeah, that was a real finding by IOFM in their survey, when they found out that over 60% of the organizations that they surveyed had at least one instance of fraud, some as many as 3 or more. The fraud happens in all different types, in all different manners. And they call duplicate invoices, but they can be fraud as well. If you're doing a double payment and the vendor accepts that second payment, it's another example of a type of fraud that can occur. But also what's happening is during the pandemic, it was also not many organizations, but there were organizations out there that said, oh, this is a great opportunity to submit fraudulent invoices to see if we can get paid, because there's issues that these companies are going to have with invoices coming in by paper and individuals in their organization being remote. And so that's why there was a tremendous uptick in the fraud.
In our business with Denovo, we also have to deal, like you, with the remote employee, with businesses looking at remote, with incidences of fraud. And in our infrastructure outsourcing business and our managed services business, it's added a degree of complexity. You've painted a picture here where over 60% of the departments are targets of fraud. You got remote workers, you got paper flying everywhere, you got increases of fraud. Pete, you've kind of created a bleak picture. What do people do? I mean, how does Canon help attack this picture that we've painted of today's business environment?
Yeah, that's a good question, because what we do at Canon is we automate accounts payable process, and we automate the full process end to end. There's a number of different types of automation that do pieces, but in the Canon situation, we're talking about a full end-to-end automation of the process itself, starting where the invoices come in from on email or paper. Again, if they come in by paper, someone's going to have to get that paper, that envelope, open it up, and scan it into a file folder. But if they come in by email, our solution is able to monitor multiple email boxes if required. And when an invoice comes in, it extracts that invoice and starts the process automatically. So there's a great advantage to invoices coming in via email. Once we have that invoice, then we capture that data that's on that invoice using our optical character recognition technology, or OCR technology. In our case, we do not need a template of each supplier's invoice in order to be able to capture the information. Our solution is able to do it even on, no matter where the information resides on that invoice. It's looking for specific keywords and extract that information automatically without anyone having, like they said, having to maintain a template.
Hey,
We validated
let me ask you a question.
Sure,
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. You talked about scanning, optical scanning, intelligent capture. I can see on your sheet here. It sounds like a lot of expensive equipment's required.
It sounds like it might be expensive, but it's not, especially when you compare it to what you might be spending already today. So, and also the fact of the matter is, an end-to-end solution like this that's fully integrated with the back-end solution like JDE, Enterprise One, or e-business, or whatever the case may be, the fact that nobody's having to manually type that information into their ERP system is a real saver. But also the fact that you have an automated system that's checking and managing the process all the way through, make sure that you have far less errors than you would in a manual environment, and therefore the cost savings are tremendous.
Okay. You talked about, you mentioned Enterprise One and EBS. You guys, your solution is compatible with several ERPs?
Yes, we're ERP agnostic, but we have a lot of our customers are in the Oracle world. So we look at Enterprise, JDE, Enterprise One, e-business, as well as PeopleSoft. The three major Oracle ERP systems is really what our focus has been. And based upon that, there are a number of benefits that companies can achieve through this automation. As I mentioned before, the cost savings from manual data entry, from fraud, from duplicate invoices, and also supplier discounts. Now that you're able to pay on time, you can take advantage of those supplier discounts, and the system will actually prompt you through that. And based upon the fact that you can pay early, you can now have your suppliers who are not offering discounts, convince them to offer you some discounts. It improves your productivity, as I mentioned before, because of the lack of manual entry, and invoice processing is much faster. And we standardize the process. Many organizations, if they have multiple business units or companies, they may have different processes for each one. So now you would have one standard process across all of your units and companies within your organization, instead of having multiple different and very different scenarios for processing an invoice.
Okay, you mentioned, we were talking before about different ERP systems, and in Denovo's business, we also see, like you, customers with ERP systems, JD Edwards E1, JD Edwards World, EBS, things like that.
Yeah.
And customers are looking for us to achieve some of these same things you guys do: cost savings, improving productivity, standardizing processes. Both of our customers, Pete, want the same thing. How does somebody get started with you? How does somebody get started? Are these huge multi-million-dollar, years-long projects, or how does someone get started with the Canon solution you talked about?
A good question, because really the way it gets started is as following. It can be very rapid if a company has already the basis in their ERP system, meaning that their supplier master is in good shape. There's not a lot of duplicate entries. It's clean. It's been kept up to date. Things such as your purchase orders. You're using a lot of purchase orders to purchase supplies and what have you, so that can expedite the process and eliminate a lot of the manual GL entry codes. Also, to get your suppliers to send you those invoices by email, and to identify your workflows required for those non-PO invoices, and have those identified and written down so that when it comes to implementing the automated system, you could just move right over to it. So once you have that, the process is very quick, and typically our implementation is between a 3 and 6 month time frame, and it doesn't cost millions of dollars.
Pete, that's tremendous. You mentioned 3 critical things when I was taking notes here as you were talking. You need to get the PO format down, clean data, and supplier cooperation. I wanted to ask you something. How clean is the data that your customer from the customers you've engaged with? Is that an issue or?
Well, well, we see a lot of times we see issues with the supplier master. Like I said, duplicate entries and wrong information, etc. Also, vendors not being in the master at all, so that when an invoice comes in, there's no way for the system to match up, so it becomes an error. So those kinds of things we see all the time. But I'll tell you, the thing that we see most of all is that typically in a manual process in an organization, the workflows are in people's heads. They're not written down.
Uh-oh.
And so therefore, when you start the project itself, you have to sit down and say, okay, how do you do, when this type of invoice comes in, what's the process for review and approval? Oh, let me see. So then we go through the process of putting that down to paper so that we can go ahead and then enter that into the system so it can be automated going forward. That would probably be the most time that's taken.
For our projects, with our implementation projects or migration projects, we encounter the same thing, Pete. We call that tribal knowledge, and the challenge is getting it from people's heads down to paper.
Right.
You also, hey man, you also mentioned getting cooperation from your suppliers. How have you found suppliers for your customers agreeing to this solution and being able to work with your customers to implement the solution? Are the suppliers cooperative, or are they a little resistant to this?
Well, the first response from a supplier typically is, do I got to do more work? Do I got to change what I'm doing today? I don't want to do that. And when they're informed about what happens, and now we're going to be able to pay our suppliers early, oh, that becomes a different story. Oh, sure. I think we can email those invoices now and get paid in 15 days. Oh, and and offer you a discount for that also. So it becomes more cooperative once they understand what it means. Like, it's not going to mean you got to do something different, or you got to add duties to the folks who are sending in the invoice. It's going to be in their favor, so they become very cooperative.
It sounds like you guys are looking for a win-win there.
Yeah, I think so.
That's awesome. Pete, I'm out of questions. It sounds like you've painted a picture of our new society. We've got a remote society that's growing. We're not truly paperless yet, although we all want to head that way. And I think the project described with increased productivity, cost savings, reduced errors, a quick 3 to 6 month project, cooperative suppliers. I think this is a winning combination.
Yeah.
Why don't you share a little bit of share a little bit with the audience what Canon is, what Canon's about in general, and a little bit about the company.
Well, Canon we're really known for our imaging technology. When people think of Canon, they think of our cameras, our printers, our copiers. That's all imaging. And so the imaging technology that Canon has been transferred over. It's really coming from our software group, which is the people we're talking to right now. We developed this imaging technology and incorporated in those devices, but now we've also incorporated it into solutions like AP automation or HR automation or sales order automation, any place where you need to reduce the amount of paper or eliminate it is a perfect opportunity to use imaging technology. And the fact that imaging technology today is very advanced using AI technology and machine learning provides that capability to essentially do anything with any document that you want to do. And utilizing that technology and our delivery and implementation, customization capabilities, Canon really offers a full suite of services in conjunction with our partners like Denovo, who offer this many things on the consulting and delivery side of the equation.
Thanks, Pete. And for the audience benefit, I'll just do a real quick review. We're proud to partner with you guys, Pete. We attack the same audience, the same customer base. We want the same things. We want cost savings for our customers, increased efficiencies, reduced workload from them, and help them grow their businesses. You know, we've been partners a long time with you guys. We've been in the J.D. Edwards space, Oracle ER space for 20 years, over 2,000 customers with 200 currently under contract with us. And we're customer first, Pete. Sounds like Canon's the same way, customer first.
Yep.
And we'd like to thank the audience for being with us today. Megan, I'll turn it back over to you. And if anybody has questions in the Q&A portal, throw them over to Pete, because I don't like tough questions.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Well, first up, if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A panel. But first up, I guess, Pete, this one's going to you. Can we really get to paperless? What are your thoughts?
The question was, can you really get paperless? Is that what you?
Yes. Can we really get to paperless?
In the AP process, you can really get paperless. Absolutely. And like I said, the way you would get paperless is by utilizing that optical character recognition or OCR technology that also has the capability of not only extracting the information, but also generating a transaction from that information that it is extracted. So the paper becomes superficial. We capture an electronic image of that paper and we store it in our content repository for future reference. And it's also identified at the voucher level in accounts payable, so that when an individual is in AP and wants to go ahead and see that invoice that the voucher is concerned with, then they just click on the link and they get to see the electronic image of the invoice. They never have to leave AP to do that. So yes, you can become truly paperless in the AP environment.
Hey, Pete, I want to tag on to that because the millennial crowd is coming into management and executive positions. They all grew up in a digital world. Guys, your age and my age, we like paper. I mean, how do you deal with guys like us that?
I print it right here.
my desk is loaded with, you can't see it. My desk is, how do you win over guys like me?
Well, it's pretty hard to win over guys like you, Mike. You're too attached to your paper. But the fact is, you can still have your paper and eat it too. In other words, it becomes electronic. You would have both versions. And so if you tell an individual like you or I that, yes, you can still have your paper. You can still print out that invoice if you want. If you want to feel it and look at it in a hard copy, that's fine. But the system will actually automate an electronic version of that invoice all the way through the complete process. And there are a lot to be gained by that.
Thanks.
And who knows, you may like it.
You may like it.
Yeah.
Okay, next question that came in. What customers have you worked with that have been able to reduce paper? Obviously, Mike is not one of them.
No.
Obviously not. We've worked with many organizations, from healthcare to manufacturing to chemicals to construction. We've crossed a multitude of different industries, and they've been able to eliminate the paper in their AP process. We even have organizations now who are expanding that into other areas, such as HR processing, because the OCR technology is the same. There's no difference in the OCR that you use to capture an invoice as you would to capture an employee application or whatever the case may be. So then it's a matter of new workflows perhaps, and companies are now expanding that beyond the AP process into areas like HR, contract management, those types of things.
So it's really happening.
Yeah, really happening.
Really, Mike, really. Next, and you touched on this a little bit already, but if you had to pinpoint one area, where is the area of biggest efficiencies in reducing paper?
Well, first of all, the low-hanging fruit is accounts payable. I mean, there's tremendous gains to be had by automating accounts payable and eliminating the paper there. But as I mentioned also, human resources is another prime target because there are many documents involved with hiring a new employee and the go forward from keeping that as that employee stays with the organization, the documents that are accumulated along the way. So there's many areas in an organization, including purchase orders coming in. So you want to take that purchase order and create a sales order within your ERP system. Is another area where you can eliminate a lot of manual processing and documents running around in the organization. So if you start to think of in your organization, where do you have paper that is going from person to person, sitting on desks, some places even in boxes, that's where you want to attack with an imaging technology so that you can reduce or at least hopefully eliminate most of that paper.
Awesome. And then one other question that came in, how are you guys helping people get paperless? What's the process that you guys are going through with your customers to get them to paperless, or at least as close as you can?
Yes, what you have to have is a very experienced professional services group, which we have, who can walk people through that process, but not only walk you through the process and implementing that project, but also provide you with some of the leading, excuse me for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a, what I'm trying to get to is that the best practices, excuse me, all of a sudden I had forgotten. So best practices. So they'll offer those best practices to our customers as they implement the solution. And they have the choice, of course, of implementing that best practice or not implementing that best practice. They may stick with what they already know, but the fact of the matter is many will go along with best practices when they see that it would be beneficial to their organization to do so. Excuse me for that brain pop.
That's all good. All right, I don't see any additional questions in the Q&A panel, so I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mike and thank Peter for their time today, and to remind everybody to join us again next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern for the hoax of white-collar productivity. So thank you again, and look forward to speaking with everybody again next week.
All right, thank you.
Bye now.